YouTube. I've been grinding heavy pretty much exclusively since installing the finals. This is primarily due to the fact that everybody, even my own friends, want to play light and medium only. I am the hero they need but don't deserve. Therefore, I took it upon myself to become the heavy main of the playgroup. So I thought to myself, why not milk the situation for content? This will be a new player's perspective of an in-depth analysis of the heavy class. Buckle up and pour yourself a drink, because
things are gonna get crazy!
So you want to play the heavy class? Tell me, do you enjoy being thick with 2 C's? Do you enjoy feeling the arena quake under the awesome might of your thunder thighs? Are you big boned and it's just the rest of society that can't accept that science is wrong about all the health problems associated with obesity? If you answered yes to any of the above, then the heavy class may be for you. It's like I always said back in my college days: big money, big women, big fun. And the finals lets you experience all 3 of these at once. Yeah, I'm thinking game of the year. Before we can deep dive the intricacies of the heavy, we must first understand the heavy. Your gargantuan girth isn't just for show. As a heavy, you have the greatest health pool among all the playable classes of the game at a whopping 350. But life isn't all sunshine and rainbows, you big beautiful bastard. Your enlarged stature and increased vitality comes with some drawbacks. Namely, you are slow.
You're a lot slower. Huh?
You have the lowest base move speed in the game combined with the largest hurt box, making you an easy target to hit. You also have access to much less movement options, especially compared to the other classes. You have no easy getaway options such as jump pads, invisibility, dashes, or gateways, so positioning is key. Yes, I realize positioning is always key in all shooter games, but this becomes all the more apparent when you don't have a consistent way to quickly bail out or reposition within your own powers. Take high ground before fights whenever possible, or as quickly as possible when a team fight begins. As a heavy, you have options for great burst damage and or sustained damage, ways to create space for your teammates, and disrupt your enemies by causing chaos, but you cannot do so if you are dead or taking every engagement with poor positioning. Roles. Let's discuss the role and or roles you should be looking to fill as the heavy on your team. I am not going to be including in-game leader or shot caller, as I believe that's a positionless role in this game and is more dependent on each player's knowledge and skill as an IGL. To me, there are 3 main roles that you can fill as a heavy, and they aren't mutually exclusive, but more on that later. Guardian, Space Creation, and Entry Fragger / Pick Getter. Going over Guardian playstyle in more depth, I characterize this as more of a traditional tank style role in team-based games. The heavy has access to several gadgets and abilities to allow them to protect their teammates. Hell, you can even cosplay as Reinhardt from Overwatch with the Mesh Shield. Tools like the Mesh Shield, Dome Shield, and Barrier can allow you to deploy and create cover for you and your teammates to survive longer in team fights, especially in the case of the Dome and Mesh Shields, as your teammates can return fire through the shields, but your enemies can't. You can even let your teammates take advantage of your large body. And no, I'm not talking about like that, you sick perverts. Your Giga Girth can allow you to body block and absorb hits for your team, so it may be worthwhile on a steal attempt for a cash out to let your medium go for the steal if possible, because now if you're body blocking, that's a total of 600 HP the enemy's got to blast through, whereas it's a lot harder for smaller teammates to block for you. Bottom line, Heavy has a lot more tools available in their toolkit to protect their teammates and can act as a guardian for their team. Space creation. The art of creating space for your teammates is very similar to being a guardian, but doesn't necessarily come in the form of putting down big shield for cover for you and your team. Perhaps you tag the enemies from a good position, then go in with a charge and slam. If you can cause chaos and panic, and then force the enemy team to collapse on you, they lose focus on your teammates, which creates the space and the opportunity for them to get in and deal their damage more safely. This doesn't mean blindly rush in and get yourself killed constantly. You're no good to your team dead. But with 350 HP, you have a lot of sustain to generate value for your team. Perhaps opening a fight with a fat RPG hit, then destroying cover with Charge and Slam. Maybe using Z4 to destroy cover and environment to create angles for your team and slamming down Dome Shield for one-way bombardment. Space creation is less obvious to do as it's not as simple as holding big shield in front of your teammates, but becoming better at efficient space creation is essential to becoming a better heavy. Entry Fragger. This is probably the most self-explanatory role to understand just by looking at the name, but with 350 HP and access to both burst and sustained damage options, you can provide a lot of value to your team and initiating a team fight to tip in your favor. Examples of burst damage options include the RPG, C4, SA-1216 shotgun, and the Charge and Slam. Examples of sustained damage options include the M60, Shack 50, Lewis gun, and the flamethrower. If you can open a team fight and deal big damage to multiple targets and maybe even take one out, then your team should have an easy time cleaning up the rest of the team fight after the other team has used a lot of resources in response to you. One of the best specializations that embodies the entry fragger role is the Winch Claw. If you can pull an enemy out of a fortified area away from their allies and kill them, it pretty much wins you the team fight unless you all throw or the other team are just Giga Gamers. I'm going to put up some example loadouts on screen that exhibit different varieties of these roles, but note, like I said earlier, that the roles aren't mutually exclusive from one another. You may specialize or focus on one role that best fits the equipment you bring, your team comp, and your playstyle, but various specializations and gadgets can fit multiple roles. The Dome Shield, for example, can fit in both the Guardian and Space Creator roles. Charge and Slam can allow you to play as either a Space Creator or an Entry Fragger. Experiment with different loadouts and team comps until you find your flow and what works best for you. Let's go over specializations. Charge and Slam. Do you enjoy shouting maniacally to relieve your stress? Then you may enjoy this specialization. After a brief charge period shouting match where you contemplate all your life decisions that brought you to this exact moment, you begin rushing forward, dealing massive damage to any enemies you hit, and also destroying most environment and objects in your way. The charge can be cancelled at any time by pressing the specialization button or by jumping. Jumping turns the charge into a slam attack, dealing extra damage, staggering foes, and also destroying the floor underneath you, if possible. Of note, the higher you are in the air when the slam attack is initiated, the more damage it does to enemies. Combine this with jump pads to live out your failed dreams of becoming a WWE superstar. The Charge and Slam becomes less useful as you go against more skillful players, as they're more adept at kiting your big goofy ass, and you can't turn as well with this ability. But being able to destroy environment, cover, deal big damage, and all without using your explosives is always a welcome addition to the arsenal. The Mesh Shield. For all my Reinhardt mains out there, the Mesh Shield is not only one of the Heavy's best abilities, but is also one of the best abilities in the entire game. Turns out, being able to pull a giant shield with 750 hit points that only allies can shoot through out your ass at any time is pretty dang good. You can juggle this ability in Season 5 now, meaning you can use it immediately after stowing it, given it has some durability left, of course. Just note that every time you juggle the shield, it loses a portion of its durability, whether you blocked incoming damage or not. Use it defensively to protect yourself and your allies, or aggressively to push up to a position without taking damage. Whatever the case, it's just plain good. The Winch Claw. Perhaps you fancied yourself more of a Roadhog player in Overwatch? Well then don't worry, the finals has you covered there too. The Winch Claw, on hit, stuns enemy players briefly and then pulls them to you. Once you get proficient at consistently hitting the Winch Claw, this becomes an extremely powerful option to get a pick on enemy teams and turn the tempo quickly to your favor. However, pulling enemies is only the beginning of the Claw's awesome power. The Claw is the law. It can pull objects to you as well, so friendly revive statue out of reach, pull it in for the sneaky revive. Explosive barrel out of reach, pull it in and then go crazy. Enemy stealing your precious cash out? Hell, pull the cash out box to you and stall that shit. It's hard to steal the cash out box if it's not right in front of you. The Goo Gun. Do you enjoy splooging all over the place? Admittedly, the goo gun is my worst specialization with heavy. This is due to it requiring more thinking to make use of it, and my Neanderthalan brain is too small and smooth to realize its full potential. Perhaps one day I will perform a frontal lobotomy on myself so I can stop thinking and start doing. Or better yet, stop thinking and start gooing. In all seriousness, this specialization is difficult to use and get full value out of because purely utility. It has no inherent, immediately offensive or defensive capabilities like the other specializations. But don't let that fool you. There are many cases for the goo gun, such as fortifying rooms, making multiple stairs where you scale vertically to access places you couldn't before, build bridges, stick enemies in place, and much more. Give the goo gun a chance and experiment. You never know, you may fall in love with it. Weapon and gadget speedrun time. Lewis gun and M60. Both are very similar and each viable. The Lewis gun tends to be more controllable and accurate, whereas the M60, while being harder to control, has a much higher ammo capacity, allowing you to sustain fire for longer. Experiment with both and see which one feels better to you. Akimbo Deagles. If you hit mostly body shots or are inaccurate, you are much better off going with the Lewis gun or M60, as they are much more forgiving and have similar time to kill. However, if you're good at landing headshots, your time to kill skyrockets due to the high headshot damage multiplier these babies have. This lends the Deagles as a flex pick option for a high skill ceiling weapon choice for accurate players. Shack 50. The newest machine gun in the Heavy's arsenal comes Season 5. The Shack 50 plays much more like a SMG assault rifle hybrid, as it only has 20 round capacity magazines, but deals massive damage up close and at medium range. Its effectiveness drops off at range, but the Shack 50 is damn good and has been one of my personal favorite picks this season. SA-1216, the Shoddy Bugatti. Perfect pick for gunslingers who like to be up close and personal. This is a quad chamber shoddy that is fully automatic with 16 shots, but needs to rechamber briefly every 4 shots. The rechamber animation can actually be animation cancelled with actions like meleeing, using mesh shield, etc., leading to some skill ceiling with this weapon. The SA-1216 remains one of the best weapons for aggro playstyle heavies. The KS-23, the awkward, estranged sibling of the SA-1216. The KS-23 shotgun is a pump-action shotgun that deals massive damage per shot and also deals fantastic arena damage, lending to some niche use cases to save your explosives and gadgets. The KS-23 fires slugs, meaning your shot has to be very precise as there's virtually no spread. And the shot is projectile based, meaning at range especially, you gotta lead your shots. This makes the KS-23 feel inconsistent at times, and it's definitely difficult to master, but can be a fun flex pick if you really learn the ins and outs with this weapon. Flamethrower. You throw flames. Pretty self-explanatory. Very effective at close range, at dealing sustained damage over time, but leaves a lot to be desired for ending fights quickly. Of note that may not be obvious to newer players, flames counter toxic gas by dispelling it, and goo by burning it away. If you run into a lobby where players are spamming gas and or goo, the flamethrower might be an interesting counterpick option. MGL-32. A grenade launcher where the grenades detonate shortly after impact and deal massive damage if detonation is close to enemies. Definitely a weaker option. If you want to try and make this thing work, just make sure to take fights from very high ground when possible. Spear and Sledgehammer, the 2 melee options for heavy. The Sledgehammer attacks more slowly but deals big damage with big bonks. It also has some arena destruction utility. The Spear has a longer reach and has a special multi-attack alternative fire option. Both are niche and require you and your team to really lean into them and enable the playstyle to make them effective, particularly in higher level ranked lobbies, but are fun picks to use and can be effective in the right hands. I tend to believe the Sledgehammer is slightly better, and most of the finals community tends to believe the same. Gadget breakdown. I'm not covering all the gadgets, that would take too long and I'm already yapping a lot. The gadgets I will discuss are the stronger options you should, and probably will, use more often. But just because I don't discuss some of them, doesn't mean they are useless. They are just more niche, and require specific playstyles and strategies to make use of them. RPG, Big Boomstick, does great entry damage, or great closeout damage to end a fight. Also has some utility cases of arena destruction in a pinch if you need it for that. This will be used more than likely in 99.99% of your heavy builds. It's just that good and versatile. Dome Shield. Again, another gadget that will slot into the majority of your builds. Being able to toss down a 360-degree dome shield that you and allies can shoot through, but your enemies can't, is a tempo changer. It doesn't have the most health, but it provides precious seconds to help you win gunfights, get off revives, steal cash outs, reload, or just reposition. The third gadget slot is where a lot more variety will take place in heavy loadouts. Barricade. Primarily a defensive option to help provide cover for yourself or for teammates. However, it does have a few utility cases. In some environments, if placed carefully, it can block off certain approach points or entryways, or if placed on certain angled terrain, can be positioned to make bootleg head glitch spots. It can also be used to give you some verticality to climb up to higher ground or ledges you normally wouldn't be able to reach by mantling on top of the barricade and immediately jumping off of it. C4, a great stalling tool. You can place this on the cash out or on the ground next to the cash out box, knock it over on top of it to conceal the C4. Hear enemies stealing it, blow them sky high. Can also be used to trap entry points or choke points, or used as utility for arena destruction. Just an all-around great destructive option. Anti-gravity cube. An underrated stalling option, the anti-gravity cube levitates players and objects caught in its radius. This can also allow you to more effectively defend your cash out box, but also any enemies caught in the cube's field move at a snail's pace. So this can also be used as a niche case catch out tool to help catch enemies out for you and your team to pick off. Lock bolt launcher. I'm going to keep it real with you. This thing either feels great or it feels awful. It doesn't always work consistently, but when it does, it feels great. After launching a projectile, enemies are tethered to it, being pulled in, and moving slower the further they try to run away from it. Thus, the lock bolt is good at, well, locking people down. The chain animations reaching out to people caught in it also reveal cloaked enemies as well. Frag grenade. Great at entry damage, closeout damage, or stalling an objective, or helping you soften people up who you're chasing you while you're kiting them away. Just an all-around great solid damage option. You can almost never go wrong by bringing a frag grenade in. Goo grenade. More of a utility-based spring, this can help you bolster your defenses of a room or location, but also has some additional use cases of trapping enemies in, and also if thrown towards a wall, can be climbed up upon to allow you to reach higher terrain usually not possible for you. General tips to start heavying better. No jokes, no BS. 1. Focus on positioning. Positioning is always important no matter what class you play, but if your mediums are not enabling you, then you have way fewer and efficient options than other classes when it comes to movement. Thus, it is imperative to get to high ground before entering a fight whenever possible. Remember, you can always drop down quickly as a heavy, but it's not always so easy to get back up, especially in the middle of a fight. 2. Coordinate and play around your teammates, mediums specifically. Mediums can be your best friend as a heavy to enable you to do what you do best as a heavy, just even better. Jump pads, zip lines, dematerializer all help you enter and leave team fights more easily, and the healing beam keeps you in the thick of things longer. Communicate with your teammates. I know in solo queue it's not always easy or possible, but at least say you tried. 3. Know your escape route. Because you are slower and have less options than other classes when it comes to movement, in the event you are in a disadvantageous state and need to escape, you should already know where you're going to run to before that situation arises. On top of a building, are you going to charge and smash down a floor and start kiting? Jump off the side of the building but mantle through a window 1 or 2 floors down? These are things that will feel robotic and unnatural to think about actively when you start implementing this, but eventually it will become second nature, just like positioning will. 4. You can't slide through the vents that lights and mediums can. Find another way around. 5. Just because your movement options are more limited doesn't mean you have none. Goo grenades can be thrown perpendicularly at walls to be mounted upon to scale vertically. This can be taken to the next level with the goo gun to build ridiculous staircases to scale buildings. Barricades can be used to reach higher ground to mantle them by placing them down, jumping on them, and then jumping off of them. Utilizing goo canisters and explosive canisters to improvise ways over or through obstacles can be great to increase your efficiency moving around the map. Learn to scale buildings vertically by jumping window to window. Mantle on one, immediately back up while facing the same direction, and before falling, jump and mantle up to the next one. This feels weird and it's tricky to explain in words and it's tricky to start implementing, but it becomes easier and easier with practice. This is vital to quickly obtaining verticality and becoming shiftier in building environments when you aren't being enabled by your mediums. Charge and slam allows you to quickly navigate through walls and or floors. 6. When possible and necessary, allow your teammates to steal the cash outs and you body block for them. This makes it take more bullets to stop the attempt, and it's easier for you to body block for your teammates than it is for them to block for you due to the size difference in your player models. 7. You can completely conceal C4 by placing it on the ground and punching the cash out box until it falls over on top of it. Tricky to do at times, it definitely takes some practice, but tricks like these combined with your other gadgets and specializations can make Heavy one of the best classes at stalling cash out defenses. 8. While nuking is no longer a viable strategy, placing canisters around cash out containers or choke points and hiding C4 near them can still result in massive damage to open team fights and stall objectives. Doing so takes more creativity and setup than it did in the past, but is still very much worth it. 9. Implement strafing, crouch spam, and sliding into your gunfights. You're slow, but you're not immobile. Compensate for your larger player model by making it as difficult to hit as possible. 10. Bunny hopping and sliding allows you to carry momentum from certain actions, such as zip lines and jump pads. Practice these techniques and utilize them to optimize your movement as much as possible. Well, that's about all I had to say. If y'all enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and sharing the content around. And as always, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. See you around.